Throughout the course of the 1960s, the Black Panthers expressed their belief of self-reliance, racial pride, and equality for all people of African descent. The formation of the Panthers, originally the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, began in the summer of 1966. It was spearheaded by two college students, Huey Newton and Bobby Seale. With their anti-poverty tactics, the party broke racial barriers within their rigged society. The party went on to leave a legacy of more opportunities for people of color and lessened acts of hatred. Two decades before the birth of the Panthers, World War II had attracted many people from around the country. Many people from western and southern United States began to reside in Oakland, California. Among them were thousands of blacks who became known as the Second Great Migration. Many landed in Oakland, a community open to migrants. Huey Newton was one. Newton was born in Monroe, Louisiana on February 17, 1942. After World War II, he moved to Oakland, which had grown a sense of racial harmony during the war. But the city saw an economic and social decline as the 1950s progressed. The city was becoming poorer and racially divided as big industry left the area. Newton encountered frequent incidents of police brutality and racism towards the black community, common in that time period. When Newton was at Merritt College in Oakland, he spoke with a fellow student, Bobby Seale, about the innumerable corrupt police officers. The two discussed the amount of police brutality and even expressed their shared frustration regarding Matthew Johnson, a 1966 incident in Oakland, where a black teenager was shot and killed. The death of the teen was covered by a civil rights group, the Students' Nonviolent Coordinating Committee newspaper, The Movement. It described in detail the shooting. On Thursday, September 27, about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Matthew Johnson, 16, was shot in the back and killed by a policeman. Reflecting on the incident, Newton and Seale felt obligated to do something. They noticed the anger from black communities and turned it into political action. They began to develop a group that would meet weekly to reflect on ways to defend themselves from racist people in position of authority. Some recalled these meetings being similar to neighborhood watch groups. This led to Newton and Seale formally founding the Black Panthers movement to counter police brutality and to serve the community. Seale had once worked at the North Oakland Anti-Poverty Center as a supervisor for a summer youth work program. Many of Seale's recruits to the Black Panthers were people from the program who shared similar political perspectives, including Bobby Hutton, who was the first ever Panther recruit. Seale recalled that the group would discuss the injustices of the legal system and even go into depth of the history of black people. While Martin Luther King and Cesar Chavez were marching for black and Latino rights using nonviolence, the Black Panther movement stepped into action by helping blacks become self-reliant, and later went on to defend families from corrupt policemen. In the effort to build the aura of self-determination, the Panthers published a newspaper titled The Black Panther. The second installment of the paper was released on May 15, 1967, issuing a statement defining their intentions and need for changes within society. It was known as the 10-point program that included ideas such as determining destiny, full employment, decent housing, education, no military service for blacks, release of black prisoners, and an end to police brutality. Also included in the issue was a picture of great value. The picture captured Newton, the party leader, dressed in the standard Black Panther uniform and Black Panther black cap, sitting comfortably but alert, ready to fight. 3 months after this publication, on October 28, 1967, Newton himself fell victim to the barriers set by the corrupt system. On that day, an Oakland police officer, John Frey, pulled over a vehicle that had been owned by one of the Panthers. Frey administered the stop due to warrants that had been issued for the vehicle's parking violations. The vehicle was driven by Huey Newton. Frey, feeling threatened by Newton, called for backup, and Officer Haynes appeared. Among a barrage of racial slurs and epithets, in self-defense, Newton fought back. Gunfire erupted. Officer Frey was later pronounced dead on arrival at Merritt Hospital, and Newton was arrested. According to Officer Haynes' testimony given later in court, the traffic stop led to a physical altercation involving Newton and Frey. Newton, in his defense statement, recalled that both officers yelled racial slurs and even became extremely physical. This brutal fight with an officer at a traffic stop led to Newton being charged with first-degree murder, assault, and kidnapping. Many argued that this was an exaggeration as to what happened. Newton was convicted and sentenced to 15 years in prison, though he acted in self-defense. While 3 years of protests and rallies went by, Black Panther members stood outside the courthouse with guns and maintained a peaceful protest. The protests became known for their repeated chants, "Free Huey." As word grew, the Black Panther Party gained international attention with the help of newspaper and TV coverage, and made Huey an iconic revolutionary. The protests began to go viral. The Panther movement gained more than 5,000 supporters and demonstrators who showed up at rallies in hopes of supporting Newton's case. As a result of their relentless protesting, Huey only served 3 years of his 15-year sentence. In jail, Newton used his phone calls and visits to continue to lead the party and advise his members ways to break the barriers they were still facing. Barriers created by Jim Crow laws, bigotry, and the rigged society resulted in an abundance of impoverished people of color who lacked standard education. This made it very hard for families to thrive, often relying on external resources to stay afloat. Many children did not receive breakfast in the mornings. The Black Panther Party recognized the need for breakfast for children and attempted to help families by creating a program that could distribute food during different times throughout the day. Though still in prison, Newton, along with Bobby Seale, established in 1968 in Berkeley, California, the Panthers' hallmark program to provide free breakfast and lunch for school children. By January 1969, the program began providing free breakfast at an Episcopal church in Oakland, and within weeks it went from feeding a handful of kids to hundreds, and showed the party's most notable endeavor. Authorities would often raid breakfast program locations to bar children from eating. With the help of national sponsorships given from 23 local affiliates, free breakfast was served in 19 cities by the end of 1969. A breakfast composed of bread, bacon, eggs, and grits was distributed to more than 20,000 school children. It was late July 1969 when the party began to view their conflicts as one shared by many people of different colors and organizations. 5,000 activists from many organizations gathered in Oakland, invited by Bobby Seale, to discuss fascism, capitalism, and racism in America. At the opening session, Seale said, "We will not be free until brown, red, yellow, black, and all other peoples of color are unchained." The ideas from the conference spread across the country. Tragically, in the early 70s, the Panther Signature Meal Program was shut down by authorities. Many had spread rumors about the food provided being poisoned, or that the members were promoting racist views to the children. John Edgar Hoover, director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, known to hate the party and program itself, played a role in its demise. With the program gone, many families were angered. In response, the federal government released their own school program nationally in 1975, named the School Breakfast Program. Although the USDA had other food programs during the 1960s, the School Breakfast Program became the longest running and most successful. If not for the Black Panther Party's ideas and accomplishments, the USDA program may have never fed over 14 million children to this day. The Panthers paved the way for future groups fighting against the same barriers of racism. Throughout the African American community, the message of self-determination still resonates. In the last 20 years, Bobby Seale has visited over 500 colleges to share his personal experiences as a Black Panther, and gives advice to students interested in community organizing and social justice, helping students continue to break barriers. At Super Bowl 50 in 2016, Beyoncé's halftime show proved to be a political statement, with references to the Black Lives Matter movement, Malcolm X, and the Black Panthers, is proof that the Panthers are alive today. The Black Panthers helped break racial barriers in order to provide African Americans a better chance at life. Without the movement, blacks would still be barred from many rights and privileges. The party established racial pride and helped break barriers within their community. The group prevented countless incidents of police brutality while establishing defense and structure within the Black community. Although Huey P. Newton has passed and operations have ceased, former members of the group continue to break barriers by fighting for Black rights and carry out the party's legacy.